The news came like a blade through the chest. I was in the barracks when the comm screens lit up with the broadcast. The Supreme Commander of Earth, the only man who held our fractured nations together, was gone. Assassinated. Not by some human rival, not by a traitor in his circle, but by off-worlders. Aliens. The room froze. Soldiers who'd fought beside me in dust, steel, and blood sat like statues. A voice crackled through the speakers, too calm, too official. We regret to inform all citizens of Earth and the colonies that Supreme Commander Adrian Kane was assassinated on Arcturus Prime during peace negotiations with the Galactic Council. He was struck by an energy round delivered by an unknown assailant. The Council denies involvement. Bullshit. We all knew what it meant. Kane had walked into that council chamber as a voice of humanity. Scarred, but proud. He had been the one man who told the galaxy we wouldn't be their slaves, their pawns, or their experiments. Now he was dead, and the bastards expected us to bow our heads, swallow our grief, and let the galaxy spit on us. I slammed my fist against the steel table, rattling the cups of ration coffee. This wasn't some unknown assailant. They killed him. They all killed him. No one argued. Everyone felt the same rage boiling inside. Kane wasn't perfect. He was ruthless, blunt, and merciless to his enemies. But he was ours. And he was the only one who stood tall when every alien envoy, every smug councilman told us to stay in line. Without him, Earth would have rotted from the inside. With him, we were feared. Now, his blood stained the chamber floor of their so-called council. That night, Earth changed. Across the colonies, riots erupted. Men and women who barely agreed on anything suddenly had one focus: vengeance. Governments issued emergency decrees. Fleets were mobilized without debate, and the skies above Earth burned with the engines of warships leaving orbit. And me? I didn't think. I didn't sleep. I only remembered Kane's words, spoken to us months before. If they ever silence me, then you speak with fire. Show them Earth doesn't kneel, it strikes. I was a captain, nothing more. A soldier who had followed orders my whole life. But now there were no orders, just fury. 3 days later, I was aboard the warship Iron Rain, watching Earth shrink behind me. The crew wasn't filled with soldiers bound by duty. No, they were men and women filled with something darker. Revenge. We didn't talk about peace. We didn't talk about restraint. The assassination had burned those words from our mouths. The galaxy thought they'd removed the head of the serpent. What they didn't know was that they had awakened the venom in its fangs. When Iron Rain docked at Luna Command to receive orders, the generals didn't give us careful strategies or diplomatic lines. They gave us targets, alien outposts, supply routes, names of council members who had voted against Kane's reforms, every one of them marked in red. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. Humanity wasn't just going to defend itself. Humanity was going to become the very nightmare the galaxy had feared all along. We weren't mourning anymore. We were hunting. The first strike was set for the colony of Tazrin IV, a trading hub controlled by the same council species who regretted Kane's death. The plan wasn't clean. It wasn't surgical. It was punishment. The night before the drop, I stood in the war room staring at the holographic map. Tazrin IV's cities glowed blue, marked as civilian heavy zones. I knew what it meant: innocents, traitors, families. But I didn't care. None of us cared. One of my lieutenants, a grizzled man named Riker, muttered, "They wanted war. Let's show them what Earth calls war." And with that, I understood the truth. Kane's death had ended the age of diplomacy. Now came the age of blood. The silence before war is always heavier than the battle itself. The Iron Rain drifted through the black void like a predator, its hull scarred from old campaigns, engines humming low, waiting for the signal. Every man and woman aboard carried the same storm in their chest. This wasn't just another mission. This was the beginning of something irreversible. Tazrin 4 glowed ahead on the star maps, a lush jewel of trade and diplomacy, a planet where alien merchants carved their fortunes and their politicians fattened themselves with wealth. The Galactic Council had always used it as a showcase, proof that unity across species worked. Now it would serve as proof of something else, that Earth never forgave, and Earth never forgot. I stood on the bridge, the holographic display reflecting across my face. Riker leaned against the rail, chewing on nothing, his jaw tight. Around us, the crew's voices were low, each man strapping into stations, calibrating weapons. No laughter, no nervous chatter, just focus. "Drop readiness?" I asked. "Armories full, bomb racks loaded with kinetic rods and incendiaries," replied Lieutenant Harrow, her tone sharp, soldier-like. But there was something deeper in her voice. Satisfaction. The Admiral's orders had been simple. Strike without hesitation. No surgical targets. No careful distinction between military and civilian. The aliens had made no distinction when they put an energy round through Kane's skull. I stared at the timer on the screen. 30 minutes to orbital entry. I remembered Kane's last speech, the one they never let him finish. His words had been about dignity, about showing humanity's worth among the stars. And here I was, preparing to smear entire cities into ash. "Captain?" Riker's gravel voice pulled me out of the spiral. "You thinking about civilians?" "Yeah," I admitted. He gave a dry laugh. "You're still thinking like a human who believes in justice. Don't. We're beyond justice. This is vengeance, and vengeance doesn't count the bodies. It weighs them." The words settled in me like stone. He was right. The comm crackled. "Captain Hale," the operator called out. "Fleet Command authorizes deployment. Iron Rain is cleared for orbital strike." The crew stiffened. Every man turned toward me. They weren't waiting for the Admiral's words. They were waiting for mine. I nodded. "You heard command. Drop us into position. Tonight, the galaxy learns what happens when they touch Earth's blood." The bridge erupted into movement. Engines roared, metal groaned as the ship angled toward the planet. Through the viewport, Tazrin 4 grew larger, a world of glittering lights and sprawling skylines, a beautiful place. And soon, it would be burning. We broke through the upper atmosphere with a sound like tearing gods. Shields shimmered, fire licking across the hull. Alarms shrieked as the heat pounded us, but the Iron Rain held steady. When we emerged, the view was breathtaking. Cities glittered below, rivers winding like silver veins through emerald landscapes. Alien architecture spiraled upward, proud and defiant against the sky. "Targets locked," Harrow said, fingers flying over her console. "First salvo loaded," reported Gunnery Chief Dorn. My throat tightened. For a second, I thought of Kane again, his laugh, deep and rough, echoing across the War Council chamber. He would have hated hesitation. He would have demanded fire. "Do it," I said. The ship shuddered as the first rods dropped from orbit, each one a steel spear guided by gravity. I watched them fall on the display, bright streaks tearing through atmosphere before they slammed into the capital city. The world shook. Even from orbit, we saw the flash, mushrooming plumes of dust and flame swallowing towers, bridges collapsing, thousands of lives ending in an instant. Seconds later, the shockwave rolled through the speakers, the sound captured by satellites. A deep, monstrous roar. Gasps filled the bridge, not of horror but of awe. Humanity's vengeance had teeth. "Second salvo," I ordered, my voice low. The rods fell again, this time scattering across the trade districts. Firestorms erupted. The planet's skies lit crimson as warehouses exploded, ships tore apart mid-launch, and entire markets turned to rubble. On the comms, alien voices screamed, frantic transmissions bursting across channels. "Council vessel, we are under attack. Repeat, unknown warship assaulting Tazrin 4. "Unknown?" Riker muttered with a sneer. "Let them choke on the name." I opened our transmission channel and broadcast on all bands, voice cold and steady. "This is Earth's vengeance. You murdered our leader. You silenced our voice. Now hear ours. We are not prey. We are not your servants. We are your reckoning." The silence afterward was deafening. Then the alien panic rose higher. They scrambled ships, desperate to fight back. Sleek interceptors clawed out of hangars, engines shrieking as they angled toward us. "Here they come," Dorn grunted. "Guns live," I snapped. The iron rain came alive, cannons blazing, red tracers carved across the sky, tearing interceptors apart before they closed the gap. Alien vessels spun out of control, burning through clouds. The crew roared as each one died, the sound of righteous fury echoing on the bridge. But they kept coming, wave after wave. For every 5 we destroyed, 2 more slipped through, peppering our shields with fire. "Shields at 60%, Harrow called out. "Hold them," I barked. We dipped lower, into the atmosphere, skimming above burning districts. The smell of ash and ionized air filled the vents. Below, streets ran with shadows of chaos. Civilians screamed, soldiers scrambled, fires consumed entire blocks. I looked down at it all, my chest hollow. They would call us monsters. They would call us butchers. Maybe they were right. But in this moment, I didn't care. They had killed Kane. They had tried to kill Earth's will. Now they would learn what Earth became when it bled. The crew didn't hesitate. Bomb racks opened, hurling fire down onto garrisons, power plants, starports. Explosions thundered one after another, shockwaves rattling our hull. The planet writhed in agony beneath us. Hours passed. Our ship circled like a hawk, tearing at the flesh of Tazrin 4. By the time our magazines ran dry, entire districts were gone. Smoke choking the skies, rivers glowing red with firelight. And still, it wasn't enough. Not for me. "Captain," Riker said softly, staring at the devastation. "What now?" I clenched my fists. Now we send a message they'll never bury. I ordered Dorn to drop the last payload on the Council embassy itself, the same building where Kane's death had been signed with silence. When the bombs hit, the building disintegrated into dust and flame. The Council's proudest symbol burned before their eyes. Silence fell across the bridge. No cheering now, just the heavy breath of men who had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. We had murdered a world. But in the hollow quiet, a strange calm filled me. For the first time since Kane's death, I felt something close to peace. Because now the galaxy understood. Earth wasn't just another voice in the Council. Earth was war. The smoke of Tazrin 4 still clung to my uniform. Even after decontamination, the stench lingered, embedded in my skin, the smell of charred stone, melted metal, and ash that used to be living bodies. When I closed my eyes, I could still see the mushrooming plumes, the towers collapsing, the screams of alien voices on comms as they begged for mercy. And the worst part? I didn't regret it. Not a damn second. The Iron Rain was back in orbit, limping, shields scarred from the fight, ammunition bays empty. The crew was exhausted, hollow-eyed, but none of us slept. None of us wanted to. Sleep meant remembering. Sleep meant dreaming of faces buried in rubble. On the bridge, the silence was thick. No one laughed, no one muttered their usual curses. We had crossed a line, and every man and woman here knew it. The comm crackled alive. Fleet Command. "Captain Hale." The voice was sharp, clipped, carrying the weight of bureaucrats who had no idea what war really smelled like. Tazrin IV's destruction has ignited a firestorm across the Council, protests on Arcturus, threats from the Torath, demands from the Drenari. The galaxy now labels humanity as a rogue species. How do you respond? I leaned closer to the comm, my jaw tight. Respond? Tell them Earth doesn't respond. Earth acts. There was a pause on the other end, then a sigh. Command anticipated this tone. Captain Hale, the Admiralty has made its decision. Humanity is no longer seeking a place in their council. We are at war. From this day forward, the fleets are unleashed. All colonies, all soldiers, all ships are now mobilized under War Code Directive 1. The words sank like lead in the room. War. Not skirmishes, not retaliation. War. Riker gave a humorless chuckle. Well, they finally said it. Took Kane's blood to get us here, but they finally pulled the trigger. The operator's voice cut back in. Your next orders. Rally with the 7th Fleet at the Perseus line. Interdiction strikes are authorized on all alien convoys. You will not return to Earth until the Admiralty says so. Is that understood? I didn't hesitate. Understood. When the channel closed, I turned back to the crew. They were staring at me, waiting. Not for command's orders, for mine. This is what Kane warned us about, I said, my voice carrying through the bridge. He told us the galaxy would never respect us until it feared us. Well, they fear us now, and we'll make damn sure they never forget why. A low growl of agreement rippled through the room. The Perseus line was chaos. Hundreds of ships, carriers, and battle cruisers stretched across the void like a metal storm front. Earth's fleets had always been fractured, nations bickering over command, but Kane's death had forged them together. American destroyers sailed beside Russian carriers. European frigates docked with African dreadnoughts. Chinese stealth cruisers linked data with South American missile barges. The whole of humanity, united not by politics, but by fury. When the Iron Rain slid into formation, comms lit up with greetings. Some called us heroes, others called us monsters, but every voice carried respect. They're saying the Council embassy burned with 500 dignitaries inside, Riker said as we docked with a refueling ship. 500 alien leaders gone in a heartbeat. That's not war, Hale. That's decapitation. They killed Kane, I muttered. We returned the favor. But I knew it wasn't the same. Kane had been one man, human, ours. What we had done to Tazrin IV was something else entirely. It wasn't justice, it was terror. Still, when I walked the docking bridge to meet the 7th Fleet's admirals, the soldiers saluted. They looked at me with fire in their eyes. Not fear, admiration. To them, I wasn't a captain anymore. I was the man who had lit the match. The admirals gathered in the war chamber aboard the carrier Invictus. Maps floated in holograms above the table, entire sectors glowing red with potential targets. Admiral Thorne, a stone-faced relic with scars across his jaw, fixed me with a gaze like a blade. Captain Hale, you turned Tazrin IV into rubble. Do you know what that means? Yes, sir, I said evenly. It means they'll come for us with everything they have, he growled. The Council's military is vast. Armies that span sectors, fleets that dwarf our own. You've forced their hand. I didn't flinch. Good. Let them come. Better to fight as wolves than live as chained dogs. A murmur ran around the table. Some admirals looked uneasy, but Thorne's mouth twitched into the ghost of a smile. Spoken like Kane himself, he said, and perhaps that's what we need. The map shifted, highlighting supply lanes across Council territory. Your orders are simple, Hale, Thorne continued. We're going to strangle them. Convoys, trade hubs, fuel depots, burn them all. If the Council wants to fight, they'll fight hungry and broke. And if they retaliate on Earth? I asked. Thorne's expression hardened. Then we make them regret surviving long enough to try. The raids began within days. Humanity's fleets poured into alien space like wolves unleashed from cages. Convoys vanished into debris fields. Mining stations went silent. Their distress calls answered only with static. Trading hubs that once glowed with wealth now burned in orbit, shattered by railguns and missiles. And with every strike, the Council grew louder. Broadcasts flooded the networks, showing images of alien children crying, cities smoldering, families torn apart. They called us butchers, terrorists, a species gone rabid. But on Earth, we were celebrated. Every broadcast, every image of fire raining down on alien worlds was replayed across the colonies like victory parades, streets filled with chants, men raising fists to the sky, women draping flags over balconies. Humanity had finally shed the chains of diplomacy. We were the galaxy's nightmare, and we were proud. But war eats at men, and it eats fast. On the Iron Rain, the crew changed. At first, they cheered every convoy we destroyed, every city we leveled. But as the body count grew, so did the silence. Men drank harder. Fights broke out in the mess hall. Eyes that once burned with righteous fury now looked hollow, haunted by what they'd done. Riker tried to keep morale up, barking jokes, calling the aliens cowards, but even he couldn't hide the cracks. One night, as I walked the darkened corridors, I found Harrow sitting outside the armory, her hands trembling. She didn't notice me at first. She was staring at her palms, whispering to herself. "They screamed," she muttered. "God, they screamed." I wanted to tell her it was war, that screams were part of it, but the words died in my throat, because I heard them too. Every night. The Council finally struck back. It came at the edge of the Perseus Line. A fleet of alien warships, massive and glittering, descended on us like a tidal wave. Torath cruisers, Drenari battle carriers, Zethan frigates, species that hated each other had united under one banner, vengeance against humanity. The first volley ripped through space, tearing apart 2 destroyers before they could even raise shields. The void lit up with fire, missiles streaking, cannons pounding. The Iron Rain dove into the fray, guns roaring, railguns shredding Zethan frigates into scrap. Riker howled over comms, his laughter half-mad as alien ships burst into fireballs. But the Council fleet was endless. For every one we downed, 3 more pressed forward. On the bridge, alarms screamed. "Shields failing! Hull breaches on deck 7 through 9! Keep firing!" I bellowed. "We die with our teeth in their throats!" The void became a graveyard. Human ships and alien ships drifted in burning silence, corpses frozen in space. The Perseus Line was no longer a line. It was a slaughterhouse. But we didn't break. We couldn't. Humanity fought with the rage of a species with nothing left to lose. Hours passed, blood, fire, and steel, and somehow, when the smoke cleared, we were still there. Broken, battered, but alive. The Council fleet had withdrawn, leaving wreckage in their wake. We hadn't won, but we hadn't lost either. And that, in itself, was victory. After the battle, I stood on the shattered bridge, staring out at the drifting hulks of ships. Kane's words echoed in my head. "If they ever silence me, you speak with fire." I realized then, this war would not end in peace. Not in treaties, not in words. It would end when one side was ash, and the other stood on the ruins. And I knew, deep in my bones, that humanity wouldn't stop until the galaxy burned. The Perseus Line was still burning when the new orders came. We were barely patched together. The Iron Rain floated in the black, her hull scorched, decks twisted, corridors lined with makeshift welds. Men slept where they fell, armor still on, weapons clutched in their hands as if letting go meant death. But Earth didn't care. Command didn't care. The Admiralty's message was clear. Adapt, escalate, show them what happens when the galaxy bleeds us. At first, I thought it meant more raids, more ambushes. But when Admiral Thorne's face appeared on the holoscreen, I realized the game had changed. "Captain Hale," he said, voice low, calm, almost too calm for a man discussing genocide. "We are done striking trade lanes. The Council thinks we are a nuisance. That will end. We will break them with terror, the same way they tried to break us with Kane's blood." He tapped a command, and new targets lit up on the holographic map. Bright blue dots across alien systems. Not military outposts, not shipyards, colonies, civilian worlds, agricultural stations that fed entire sectors. I stared, my jaw clenched. Even Riker, who had once laughed while alien ships burned, went quiet beside me. "You want us to starve them?" I asked. Thorne's scarred face never flinched. "Not starve. Shatter. You've seen what fire does to their cities. Now we spread that fire to their food, their water, their children's air. You will lead the first strike." The transmission cut out. Silence filled the bridge. Harrow finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Children." "He just said—" Riker cut her off, spitting on the floor. "Children grow into soldiers. Better to burn their cradles now than fight them later." But I saw the flicker in his eyes. Even he didn't believe his own words. The target was a hydrostation on Keshetal 4, a sprawling facility that supplied half the sector's water. No military value on the surface. But without it, entire planets would wither. As we approached, I stood in the observation bay, staring down at the glittering complex. Massive towers pumped oceans into the sky, condensing clouds into rivers that fed alien farmlands. The station was beautiful in its simplicity, pure utility. No weapons, no defenses beyond a handful of orbital satellites. Innocent. And yet, Command had marked it red. "Orders, Captain?" Dorn asked from weapons. His hands hovered over the trigger. Every man on the bridge stared at me. They weren't just waiting for my word, they were waiting for my soul. Kane's voice came back to me again. "If they silence me, you speak with fire." I closed my eyes. "Fire," I said. The iron rain shuddered. Torpedoes streaked into the hydrostation, ripping through the towers. One by one, they collapsed, crumbling into oceans, spewing flames across the water. Massive waves swallowed coastal cities as reactors went critical. The planet howled as its lifeline was severed. "Target destroyed," Dorn said. His voice was flat, hollow, but I couldn't stop watching. I couldn't look away from the blue-green world below, once fertile, now bleeding into chaos. I imagined alien children staring at dry rivers, alien mothers clutching empty cups. And I told myself it was justice. The galaxy noticed. Within a week, alien broadcasts filled every channel. They showed images of starving families, rivers turned to poison, corpses lined in rows outside ration stations. They painted us as demons in human skin. And maybe they were right. But Earth's response was simple. They killed Kane first. That excuse echoed through every broadcast, every speech. A shield for our consciences, a blade for our enemies. The Council didn't sit idle. They hit back harder than before. Raids on human colonies, bombardments on our frontier outposts. One night, while we were still orbiting Keshetal's ruins, news came from Mars. A Drenari fleet had punched through defenses and glassed an entire settlement dome. 15,000 humans, gone in a breath. The crew was silent as the report played. Some wept quietly. Others clenched fists. But Riker? Riker roared with laughter, a sound that made even me flinch. "Good," he spat. "Now we're even. Now no one can say we didn't earn this war." He slammed his fist against the console. "Burn them all, Hale, every last one of them. Let their skies go dark." And the men cheered. Hollow, broken, but they cheered. We struck again, and again. Not soldiers, not fleets, civilian worlds. We dropped rods on orbital farms, bombed oxygen plants, poisoned atmospheres with chemical dispersers. Entire species began to flee from border worlds, their people flooding into council cores like rats escaping fire. And everywhere we went, the name Iron Rain became legend. Alien voices whispered it like a curse, mothers using it to frighten their children into obedience. We weren't soldiers anymore. We were monsters. But I saw what it was doing to my crew. Harrow drank herself half dead each night, her hands trembling when she tried to load weapons. Dorn stopped sleeping, muttering prayers under his breath before each strike. Even Riker, loud and defiant, sometimes went quiet, staring at nothing, lips moving as if speaking to ghosts. And me? I stopped dreaming. I stopped thinking. Orders came. Targets glowed red. We destroyed them. That was all. One night, Harrow confronted me. She cornered me outside the war room, her eyes bloodshot, her voice shaking. "How many more, Hale? How many more worlds until we're no different from the bastards who killed Kane?" "We're already different," I said coldly. "They killed one man. We're killing empires." Her face twisted. "Listen to yourself. You think Kane would want this?" I grabbed her by the collar, dragging her close. "Kane is dead. And this is what's left of us. Either you fight or you die. There's no middle ground." She stared at me with tears in her eyes. Then she shoved me away and stormed off. For the first time, I wondered if I'd crossed a line so far I could never come back. The council finally broke their silence. A transmission appeared across every channel, every screen, every frequency. The council speaker, a tall Torath with scales like molten glass, spoke with fury. "Humanity has declared war on all life. They have slaughtered innocents, poisoned worlds, burned children. They are no longer recognized as members of this galaxy. They are a plague, and plagues are exterminated." The message ended with a chilling line. "For every world they destroy, we will destroy 10. The bridge went silent as the words echoed, and for the first time I saw fear in my crew's eyes. That night, I stood alone in my quarters, staring at the stars. I thought of Kane. I thought of Tazrin. I thought of the rivers on Keshatal running dry. Was this what he wanted? Or had we twisted his words into something he would have despised? I didn't know anymore. But I did know one thing. The galaxy had drawn its line, and so had we. This wasn't war for peace. This was war for extinction. The Council didn't waste time. 2 weeks after they branded humanity a plague, they proved they meant every word. The first reports came from Titan Station, a sprawling civilian hub orbiting Saturn. The Drenari fleet arrived without warning, bypassing our outer defenses. Within minutes, the station was gone. 100,000 civilians, wiped into frozen dust. The comm feeds played the footage on repeat. Families huddling in corridors, children screaming as the walls shook, then nothing but silence and debris. The galaxy didn't just want war, they wanted to erase us. When the news reached the Iron Rain, silence crushed the mess hall. Men stared at the screens, jaws tight, eyes burning. Some wept openly, others cursed the stars. And then Riker stood up, slamming his fist against the table so hard the metal dented. "They want to play extermination?" he roared. "Then we show them we're better at it." The crew erupted, fists pounding, voices rising into a chant of rage. But beneath the fury, I saw it. The fear. Titan Station wasn't a frontier outpost. It was home. And if the Council could hit there, nowhere was safe. The Admiralty convened the fleet leaders that night. I stood among them, listening as holomaps displayed the devastation. Admiral Thorne's face was carved from stone, but his eyes burned. "The Council thinks Titan will break us," he growled. "Instead, it will forge us. We cannot match their numbers. We cannot match their technology, but we can match their cruelty." He turned his gaze to me. "Captain Hale, the Iron Rain has already proven itself willing to do what others cannot. You will lead a retaliation strike." "What's the target?" I asked. "The Torath homeworld." The room fell silent. Even hardened admirals stiffened. The Torath weren't fringe merchants or colonies. They were core council members, their world a jewel of alien civilization. "That's suicide," one general muttered. Thorne's lips curved into a grim smile. "Number that's message." I felt the weight of every eye in the chamber. My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. "We'll do it." The journey to Torath space was tense, every hour thick with anticipation. The crew moved like ghosts, silent but sharp, checking weapons, running drills, preparing for what might be our last mission. Harrow approached me in the corridor, her face pale, her voice quiet. "We're crossing a line we can't come back from." "We crossed it at Tazrin," I said. She shook her head. "This is different. The Torath homeworld isn't a colony. It's billions. Cities the size of continents. Families who don't even know Kane's name." I stared at her, my jaw hard. "They'll know his name when we're finished." She didn't reply. She just walked away, leaving me with the echo of my own words. We breached Torath space at dawn cycle, the system's twin suns blazing like judgment in the distance. The homeworld glittered below, vast oceans, sprawling megacities, towers that pierced clouds. It was beautiful, untouched by war. Not for long. "Targets locked," Dorn muttered, hands trembling slightly. The crew waited. No one cheered. No one spoke. They all knew what this meant. I stared at the planet, my chest heavy. Part of me wanted to hesitate, to find another way. But Titan Station's screams echoed in my ears. Kane's death burned in my skull, and Thorne's words replayed like a curse. "We cannot match their numbers, but we can match their cruelty." "Fire," I ordered. The sky lit up as our rods fell, streaking fire into the atmosphere. Seconds later, the Torath capital vanished in flame. Towers crumbled, roads split, oceans boiled. The crew gasped as the shockwave rippled across the planet. Entire districts collapsed, millions dying in seconds. Then the second wave hit. And the third. By the time we pulled away, the Torath homeworld skies were black with ash. The galaxy screamed. Alien networks flooded with images of their burning capital, of mothers wailing over rubble, of children clawing at dust. Billions dead in a single strike. Entire species howling for vengeance. The Council declared humanity beyond redemption. "We will not stop until every human is dust," the speaker vowed. "But on Earth?" The people cheered. Parades erupted in cities. Broadcasts hailed us as avengers, protectors, heroes. The destruction of the Torath capital became a rallying cry, and yet I felt no pride, only emptiness, because I knew what was coming. The retaliation hit sooner than expected. The Council unleashed everything. Fleets poured into human space, burning colonies, bombarding moons, shattering stations. Mars was struck again, its surface scarred by orbital fire. Venus colonies suffocated as atmosphere processors were torn apart. Even Earth wasn't spared. A Zethan strike team infiltrated orbit and detonated warheads in the Atlantic, sending waves crashing into coastal cities. Millions dead. Entire nations crippled. Humanity screamed in pain, but it did not bow. Instead, it roared back. The Admiralty unleashed a new doctrine, scorched void. No more raids, no more surgical strikes. Every council world in range was to be annihilated, regardless of status. The Iron Rain was sent to lead the charge. We hit agricultural planets, reducing fields to ash. We struck medical hubs, turning hospitals into craters. We even destroyed refugee convoys, packed with civilians fleeing from our own earlier attacks. Each time, the crew grew quieter. Each time, the fire in their eyes dimmed a little more. One night, I found Dorn in the chapel bay, kneeling before the empty altar. His lips moved, whispering prayers I hadn't heard since Earth's old wars. When he noticed me, he didn't stop. He just looked at me, eyes hollow. "Do you think God still hears us?" he asked. I had no answer. The breaking point came during the siege of Yelkari Prime. We were ordered to drop fire on their civilian domes, massive cities sealed under glass, each holding millions. When the rods fell, the domes shattered, and I saw it all on the screens, people gasping as air escaped, bodies clawing at nothing, children pressed against glass as it cracked around them. Harrow vomited at her station. Dorn turned away, weeping openly. Even Riker, who had once relished every strike, sat silently, his eyes dark. And me? I stared. I watched it all, my heart a stone. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel vengeance. I just felt nothing. When it was over, I stood on the bridge, staring at the burning planet below. The crew waited for my orders, but none came. Because for the first time, I realized we weren't avenging Kane anymore. We weren't fighting for Earth. We were killing because we didn't know how to stop. That night, I sat alone in my quarters, staring at Kane's old speech saved on my datapad. His voice crackled through the static. Humanity must be strong. Humanity must be proud. But humanity must never lose itself. The words cut deeper than any blade. Because I knew we already had. The war had no front anymore. The Council's fleets poured into every corridor of space, hitting colonies, outposts, mining stations. Humanity struck back with equal fury, glassing worlds, burning skies, reducing civilizations to ash. There was no longer strategy, no diplomacy, just slaughter stacked on slaughter until the stars themselves seemed to bleed. The iron rain drifted through it all like a cursed relic. Everywhere we went, whispers followed. That's Hale's ship, the one that burned Torath, the one that shattered Yelkari domes, the one that poisons worlds. To the galaxy we were nightmares, to Earth we were legends. But to ourselves, we were dying, piece by piece. The cracks showed in the crew first. Dorn stopped shaving, his face ragged, eyes sunken. He barely spoke, except in broken prayers muttered at his console before each strike. Harrow drank constantly, hiding bottles under her station, her hands trembling so violently she dropped tools during repairs. And Riker, even Riker, the man who once laughed at fire, sat silent now, staring at walls as though he could see every soul we'd left behind. The worst was what happened after Yelkari. The screams of suffocating aliens haunted the crew. Men woke in the night, drenched in sweat, some swearing they heard scratching at the hull, as if the dead were trying to claw their way in. I felt it too. Kane's voice replayed in my head like a curse. Humanity must be strong, but never lose itself. But what if we already had? Command didn't care. They sent more orders, more targets, more fuel for the fire. Our next assignment was brutal even by their new doctrine, the Antheri Cradle, a world revered as holy ground by the Antheri species. Billions of pilgrims lived there, entire generations born and raised under sacred skies. When the orders came through, I read them twice, hoping I'd misheard. But no, it was clear. Exterminate population centers. Leave the planet in ruins. When I told the crew, silence suffocated the bridge. Harrow's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Dorn crossed himself, muttering in broken Latin. Even Riker stood slowly, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth would crack. "No," he said. The word cut through the air like a blade. No? I asked. Riker's eyes burned. We've followed you through hell, Hale. Tazrin, Torath, Yelkari. But this? A holy world? Billions of unarmed civilians? That's not war. That's genocide. The crew stared between us, waiting. My throat tightened. If we don't strike them, they'll strike us, I snapped. You saw Titan. You saw Mars. They won't stop until Earth is dust. Maybe they shouldn't stop, Riker snarled. Maybe they should wipe us out before we turn into something worse than them. Gasps rippled across the bridge. No one spoke against him. No one defended me. I stepped closer, my hand twitching toward my sidearm. You want to quit now? After everything we've bled for? After Kane? Riker's face twisted. Kane's dead, Hale. And if he saw what we've become, he'd spit on us. The words hit harder than any strike. My hand hovered near my pistol, but I didn't draw. Not yet. Instead, I barked, "All hands prepare for orbit. Orders are orders." The crew moved, but slower than before, reluctant, eyes heavy with hate, not for the enemy, but for me. We descended on the Antheri cradle under skies painted gold by twin suns. The world was breathtaking. Vast temples carved from mountains, rivers of crystal weaving through forests, cities that gleamed with spires shaped like prayers. It was untouched by war, pure, and we were about to defile it. The first salvo launched. Rods fell, smashing through temples, reducing sacred towers to rubble. Pilgrims screamed, scattering like ants as shockwaves split the earth. Fire consumed holy forests, smoke choking the skies. The crew watched in silence, horror etched on every face. "Target neutralized," Dorn muttered, his voice broken. I stared at the devastation, my chest hollow. My hands trembled against the railing, and then, for the first time since Kane's death, I hesitated. "Cease fire," I ordered. Gasps rippled across the bridge. Harrow looked up, tears in her eyes. Dorn whispered another prayer. Riker stared at me with something between shock and rage. "You're stopping now?" he barked. "After burning half the galaxy, you grow a conscience here?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because maybe he was right. But I couldn't stomach another dome shattering, another billion bodies clawing at the air. That night, mutiny whispered through the ship. I found Riker in the mess, surrounded by men, his voice sharp. He's weak. He hesitates. Command gives us orders and Hale balks. "Do you want to follow a coward or do you want to win this war?" The men murmured, some nodding, others silent. I stepped forward, my pistol in hand. "Say it to me, Riker," I said. He turned, his eyes blazing. "You're not a captain anymore, Hale. You're a ghost dragging us down, and ghosts don't command the living." The mess went silent. My finger twitched on the trigger. For a moment, I wanted to kill him, to silence his voice forever. But I didn't. I holstered the pistol and stepped closer. "You think I'm weak? Maybe I am. But at least I'm still human. What are you, Riker? A butcher who's forgotten what it means to bleed?" His jaw tightened. For a heartbeat, I thought he'd strike me. But then he turned, storming out, his men trailing behind. Mutiny hadn't won, not yet. But it was coming. I could feel it. The next morning, Command sent another message. "Captain Hale." The Admiral's voice was cold, devoid of mercy. "Reports indicate hesitation during the Antheri strike. If you falter again, your command will be revoked. Humanity cannot afford weakness." The transmission ended. No encouragement, no gratitude, just threat. I stood in the war room alone, staring at the maps. Red dots marked every world we'd burned. There were so many now that the stars looked like wounds. I thought of Kane again, his smile, his voice, his belief in us. And I wondered if he'd see us now as saviors, or as monsters. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked the dark corridors, the ship creaking around me. I ended up in the observation bay, staring at the stars. Harrow joined me silently, a flask in her hand. She didn't offer it. She just stood there, her face pale, her eyes red. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered. I didn't answer. She turned to me, her voice breaking. "If we keep killing like this, Hale, what's left of us to save?" Her words lingered long after she left. Because I knew she was right. The Council wasn't slowing. In fact, they were getting stronger. For every world we burned, 10 more rallied to their cause. Species that once hated each other now fought side by side. Fleets swelled into armadas, stretching across sectors like steel storms. And us? We were running out of fuel, out of men, out of time, but Command didn't care. They only sent more targets, more red dots, more fuel for the fire. And in my chest, a truth began to burn. This war wasn't about Kane anymore. It wasn't even about Earth. It was about pride, about proving we could bite harder than the galaxy, and it was going to kill us all. When I returned to the bridge, the crew stared at me, waiting. Their faces were hollow, their eyes haunted. They didn't need orders anymore. They needed something else, something I wasn't sure I had left. "Captain?" Dorn asked softly. "Where do we go now?" I stared at the stars, my throat dry. And for the first time, I didn't have an answer. The order came at dawn cycle, as I knew it would. "Captain Hale," Command's voice crackled across the bridge, flat and merciless. "Your hesitation during the Antheri campaign has been noted. There will be no further mercy. Your next target is Vera Prime, Council Core world, population 5 billion. You are to execute total sterilization protocol. No survivors." The channel cut without ceremony. No room for debate. No room for doubt. Just extermination. The crew stared at me in silence. Harrow's knuckles whitened on the console. Dorn lowered his head, lips whispering silent prayers. And Riker's face twisted into a savage grin. "You heard them," he barked. 5 billion aliens, wipe them clean. Finally, Command grows the spine to end this." I said nothing. My throat was dry, my chest tight, because for the first time, I couldn't pretend this was vengeance. This wasn't justice for Kane. This was genocide, written in orders and sealed with Earth's flag. That night, whispers turned into shouts. In the mess hall, Riker stood on a table, his voice booming. "Command knows what must be done, but Hale doesn't have the guts. He hesitates while Earth burns. He'd rather coddle alien brats than save our families." The men growled in agreement. Some pounded fists against the table, others shouted his name. Harrow stood, her voice shaking but firm. "And what about ours, Riker? What about the men on this ship who can't sleep at night because all they hear are screams? What about the ones who vomit after every strike? Are they weak too?" Riker sneered. "They're soldiers, and soldiers don't get to choose." The room erupted, half the crew roaring with him, half falling silent, shame burning their faces. And me? I stood in the doorway, pistol at my side, listening. When Riker noticed me, he spread his arms wide. "There he is, the man of hesitation, the coward who stops halfway through the kill. Tell us, Hale, when Command orders extermination, will you finally do it, or will you choke again?" Dozens of eyes turned to me, waiting. I stepped forward slowly, my voice low. "You want extermination, Riker? Then you take the trigger. You burn 5 billion children yourself and see if you can live with it." The room went silent. His grin faltered for a second, but only a second. Then he spat. "Better me than you! Better a butcher than a coward!" The men roared again. The mutiny began the next day. I woke to alarms blaring, red lights flashing. Harrow burst into my quarters, her face pale. "Riker's seized engineering! He's cut main power to the bridge!" I grabbed my pistol and ran. Corridors echoed with shouts, boots pounding, men clashing. The ship shook as systems flickered, lights dying, engines stalling, shields collapsing. When we reached the lower decks, gunfire cracked through the halls. Riker's men had barricaded the armory, weapons blazing as loyalists tried to push them back. Bodies littered the floors, human blood painting the steel. "This is madness," Harrow shouted over the gunfire. "No," I muttered. "This is war coming home." We charged. Bullets screamed past. I dropped 2 men with quick shots, my pistol barking in the chaos. Dorn followed, his face twisted in anguish, firing with eyes clenched shut like a man killing his own kin. We fought corridor by corridor, steel echoing with death. Finally, we reached engineering. Riker stood at the consoles, rifle slung over his chest, his men spread around him. The room stank of smoke and blood. "Well, well," he drawled, smirking as if none of this mattered. "The coward captain himself. Come to watch me finish what you couldn't?" "Stand down, Riker," I snapped, pistol raised. "You're tearing this ship apart." He laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "This ship was torn apart the moment you started hesitating. Command gave us orders, Hale, orders to save humanity, and you spit on them because your heart bleeds for alien rats." "Saving humanity doesn't mean losing our souls," I barked. He sneered. "Souls don't win wars. Fire does." He raised his rifle. For a heartbeat, it was just us. 2 men, 2 paths, everything we'd become hanging on the pull of a trigger. The shot rang. Not his. Mine. Riker staggered, blood blooming across his chest. His grin faltered, eyes wide in disbelief. Then he collapsed, his body thudding against steel. The room went silent. His men stared, some dropping weapons, others fleeing. Harrow's face was pale, tears shining in her eyes. Dorn crossed himself, whispering a prayer for the dead. And me? I felt nothing. Just emptiness. We regained control of the ship, but at a cost. Dozens of men lay dead, their blood mixing with the aliens we'd slaughtered in my mind. The Iron Rain wasn't just infamous now. It was broken. When I returned to the bridge, the crew's eyes wouldn't meet mine. Not out of fear, but out of something worse. Disappointment. They saw me not as their captain, not as their leader, but as the man who had killed one of their own. And yet, when Command's face flickered onto the comm, none of that mattered. "Captain Hale," the Admiral said, voice sharp. "Reports indicate mutiny aboard your vessel. Explain." I forced my voice steady. "Riker disobeyed orders. He's dead. The ship is secure." The Admiral's face betrayed no reaction. "Good. Then proceed with your mission. Vera Prime awaits." And just like that, the channel cut. No acknowledgement of the dead. No recognition of the blood spilled. Just more orders to burn. That night, I stood in the observation bay again, staring at the stars. The ghosts pressed against the glass. The aliens we'd killed, the men I'd buried, even Riker, his grin still etched in my mind. Harrow joined me quietly. For once she didn't drink. She just stood there, eyes fixed on the void. "Do you ever wonder," she whispered, "if we're the villains in their stories?" I swallowed hard. "Number, I don't wonder. I know." Silence stretched between us. Finally she spoke again. "So what now? Do we obey? Do we burn Vera?" I clenched my fists, Kane's voice echoing in my skull. Humanity must never lose itself. For the first time since his death, I realized the truth. Following Command meant losing everything we were. Defying them meant war not just with the galaxy, but with Earth itself. Either way, we were damned. But perhaps damnation was the only freedom left. The next morning, the crew gathered on the bridge. They waited for me, silent, broken, haunted. Their faces were tired, their eyes hollow. "Command ordered us to Vera," I said, my voice heavy. 5 billion souls, total extermination." Silence. No one moved. No one spoke. I took a deep breath. "We're not doing it." Gasps. Harrow's eyes widened. Dorn's lips parted in shock. "We've burned enough," I continued. "We've slaughtered enough. If Command wants to kill 5 billion civilians, they can send someone else, not us." The room was silent. Then, slowly, Harrow nodded. Dorn whispered a prayer of relief. Even some of Riker's men, once loyal to him, lowered their heads, as though a weight had finally lifted. For the first time in months, the crew breathed, but in my chest I knew what it meant. We had just declared war, not only on the galaxy, but on Earth itself. The moment I defied Command, I knew the Iron Rain was already dead. They'd brand us traitors, hunt us like dogs, strip our names from records, bury our families in shame. And maybe we deserved it. But I couldn't burn another world. Not Vera. Not 5 billion lives. For the first time since Kane's death, my conscience whispered louder than Command's voice. But conscience doesn't stop war. The transmission came within hours. Admiral Thorne's scarred face filled the screen, his voice sharp with rage. "Captain Hale, your refusal is treason. You and your crew are hereby stripped of rank and condemned. Earth's fleets are en route to seize the Iron Rain. Surrender now, and perhaps your crew will be spared." I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. Spared? After all the blood you forced us to spill? After the children you made us burn? "No, Admiral. We're done being your butchers." His eyes narrowed. "Then you'll die as traitors." The transmission cut. The crew stared at me, some pale with fear, others trembling with something new. Relief. For once their captain wasn't repeating orders. He was defying them. "We just made Earth our enemy," Harrow whispered. "Earth was already our enemy," I muttered. "We were just too blind to see it. We couldn't run. Command had fleets everywhere, and the Council would kill us on sight. The Iron Rain had no allies, no sanctuary, only enemies waiting in every shadow of space." So I made a choice. "We're going to Vera," I said. Gasps erupted. "But not to burn it," I continued. "We'll broadcast everything Command ordered us to do. We'll show the galaxy the truth, that Earth's admiralty has turned humanity into monsters." Harrow blinked, tears shining in her eyes. "You think they'll believe us?" "They don't have to," I said. "They just have to see it." The journey to Vera was hell. Our ship was battered, fuel low, systems flickering. The crew worked in silence, repairing what they could, eyes hollow but hands steady. For the first time, they weren't working for Command. They weren't even working for me. They were working for themselves, for something that still felt human. But fear hung over us. Every time the sensors pinged, we expected Earth's fleets to appear. Every shadow looked like a trap. Every silence felt like the calm before execution. And then we reached Vera. It was breathtaking. A world of emerald forests, silver seas, spires of crystal cities glimmering under 3 suns. Billions lived below, unaware that Command had marked them for extinction. We opened every broadcast channel, transmitting to the entire sector. My face appeared across alien networks, human colonies, council stations. "I am Captain Hale of the Iron Rain," I said, my voice steady, cold. "Command ordered us to sterilize Vera, 5 billion lives, innocent lives, just as they ordered us to burn Torath, to shatter Yelkari, to poison Keshetal. We obeyed, and we became monsters, but no longer, not here." I paused, my chest heavy, eyes burning. If humanity must be feared, let it be feared for its defiance, not its cruelty. If Earth's admiralty wants genocide, let them stain their own hands. We will not. The message ended, and silence swept the stars. It didn't last. The Council fleet appeared first. Dozens of ships, massive and glittering, encircled us like wolves, their guns locked, their engines humming. "This is the council speaker," a voice thundered through comms. "Iron Rain, you are surrounded. Power down your systems. Surrender, and we will judge you swiftly." Before I could answer, another fleet appeared on the scanners. Human ships, Earth's banners gleaming. Command had arrived. Admiral Thorne's face filled the screen again, his voice like a blade. "Vera is to be sterilized. Stand down, Hale, or I'll burn you before I burn them." The bridge shook as both fleets trained weapons on us. 2 enemies, 1 ship, no way out. The crew looked at me, waiting. Harrow's lips trembled. Dorn clutched across, his hands white. "What now?" she whispered. I stared at the fleets, the galaxy's guns aimed at us. Kane's voice echoed in my skull one last time. "Humanity must never lose itself." I made my choice. "We fight." The crew froze. Then, slowly, one by one, they nodded. Harrow wiped her eyes and turned to her console. Dorn kissed his cross and powered the guns. Even the men who once followed Riker strapped in, their jaws tight, ready to die as something more than command slaves. The Iron Rain came alive one last time. We struck first. Cannons roared, missiles streaked, the void exploding in fire. Council interceptors dove toward us, Earth's destroyers flanking them. For the first time, humanity and aliens fought side by side, against us. The ship shook under the barrage. Hull breaches erupted across decks. Men screamed as fire tore through steel. Blood sprayed corridors. But we didn't stop. We tore into them with everything left. Railguns ripping through alien frigates, torpedoes shattering Earth's cruisers. For every blow we took, we gave 2 back. The void became a graveyard. Ships burst like dying stars, bodies freezing in the dark. On the bridge, alarms screamed. "Shields gone! Decks 5 through 9 collapsing!" Harrow shouted. "Keep firing!" I roared. We drove straight through the fleets, guns blazing, a lone beast against the galaxy. Then the final blow hit. A Council dreadnought's beam sliced through our hull, tearing us apart. Flames consumed the bridge. Consoles exploded. Harrow screamed as fire engulfed her station. Dorn was thrown against steel, blood spraying. I staggered, choking on smoke, my vision blurring. The Iron Rain was dying, and so was I. With my last strength, I dragged myself to the comms. Sparks burned my skin. Blood filled my mouth, but I forced the channel open. "This is Captain Hale," I rasped, my voice echoing across every frequency. "Remember this, we were men, not monsters. We fought because they forced us. We killed because they told us to, but we died free, not as command slaves, not as the Council's prey. Free." My vision dimmed. Flames roared. The ship groaned, tearing apart. I thought of Kane, his smile, his voice, his faith in us. And then, finally, I felt peace, because whatever came after, at least we hadn't burned Vera. At least for once, we had chosen humanity. The Iron Rain exploded in silence, its wreckage scattering across the stars. Neither fleet claimed victory. The Council withdrew, shaken by what they'd seen. Earth silenced the broadcast, burying it under propaganda. But whispers spread. Whispers of a captain who defied both sides, who burned half the galaxy but refused the final sin. And in those whispers, the Iron Rain lived on. Not as butchers, not as heroes, but as men who finally remembered what it meant to be human.